stuff like The Raven and The Telltale Heart and Annabelle Lee, these show Edgar Allan Poe's devotion to sensationalism, devotion to romance, devotion to emotion, and the darker elements of mystery and, oh, the romantic dream. But he also has this curious sonnet where he takes on a kind of where he takes on a more full-throated and explicit attack on the anti-romantic spirit, the spirit essentially of the Enlightenment, and he does so in a sonnet, which is a kind of which even at that point was starting to be seem a little musty. So for him to write a sonnet, which he didn't do terribly often, for him to write a sonnet is curious because it's kind of an old-fashioned form by the time he's coming along, and so for him to make that choice, I think that says something. But the actual content of what he writes is for him a rejection of a rejection of the recent past, and perhaps a desire, a manifesto for connecting with a older past, a more sophisticated or a less sophisticated, a less cultured or civilized society, something that is more attuned to emotionalism, to sensation, to the mysteries of the universe. And so he writes this relatively early in his career as a kind of declaration, I would say. Science! True daughter of old time thou art, who alterest all things with thy peering eyes, who preyest thou thus upon the poet's heart, vulture, whose wings are dull realities? How should he love thee, or how deem thee wise? Who wouldst not leave him in his wandering to seek for treasure in the jeweled skies, albeit he soared with an undaunted wing? Hast thou not dragged Diana from her car and driven the Hamadryad from the wood to seek the shelter of some happier star? Hast thou now torn the Naiad from her flood, the elfin from green grass, and from me, the summer dream beneath the tamarind tree? Okay, not a fan of science. He is taking it on rather aggressively here and saying basically, you take all of the joy out of life. Haven't you ruined everything? Science, the empirical scientific process, the Enlightenment spirit of rationalism has robbed the world of mystery, has robbed the world of elves and goddesses and wood nymphs of all kinds, has robbed the mystery and the romance of the world. And it's curious the way he's doing that. Science, true daughter of old time thou art. First of all, old time. He is characterizing science as perhaps more outmoded, musty, but also true daughter. He's specifically and explicitly making science and the scientific temperament, the scientific impulse, feminine. It is a woman. And then it gets a little misogynist. Who alterest all things with thy peering eyes? Why preyest thou upon the poet's heart? Vulture, whose wings are dull reality. She's a vulture now. Science is a vulture. Why preyest upon the poet's heart? And the poet, I'm assuming he's referencing himself here, himself as a male specifically. So this is an image of the female essentially assaulting the male, essentially robbing the male of his romantic interests, his romantic leanings, by putting this cold rationalism on it and essentially raping the poet of his romantic inclinations. Romantic with a capital R. How shouldst he love thee, or how deem thee wise, who wouldst not leave him in his wandering to seek for treasure in the jeweled skies, albeit he soared with an undaunted wing? And these questions just pile up, like he is, like the poet, the poetic narrator here, Poe himself, presumably, is feeling victimized and is feeling attacked. And so he's defending himself. He's lashing out with these questions, and the ending of the second half of this sonnet, the sestet, kicks in with all of these figures of romance, all of these figures of romantic literature, of myth. Diana, the Hamadryad, the Naiad, the Elfin in the green grass, all of these things are getting ferreted out by the spirit of rationalism, by the spirit of the Enlightenment, the spirit of science, and the spirit of the female in this. And he feels attacked, and he gets very personal at the end after going all mythological. In the sestet, he comes up with that last line, and from me, the summer dream beneath the tamarind tree. Now, I don't know specifically what he's referencing there, but perhaps he is feeling that a woman, a female woman, has robbed him of his ability to dream, or robbed him of his dreamy temperament. Now, perhaps, and you can look into biography if you want, perhaps this is a complaint about how the female, some female in his life forced him to grow up or something, and forced him to consider realities and harsh rationalism of society, and get up and get a job and stop laying around under that damn tree dreaming all day. Maybe, but that's just a narrow dead end into his biography. What I think is more interesting is the rejection of enlightenment generally, and the personal way in which he is taking it. He's conflating the mythological with the personal, with the intimate. From me, you took this. It's not just you took all of that, but you took something specifically to me. He is aligning himself with those mythological creatures, with those myths in general, with the spirit world of romance. But he is also, I think, feeling attacked and lashing out. And yeah, it's got some misogynist overtones, but it's also an aesthetic statement. He is, at this point, starting to see that, well, all of this literature is perhaps falling out of favor, falling out of fashion, and he always was just a man a little out of time. He was kept publishing these things that are very fantastical and very romantic, and just not really of a spirit with the coarseness of what was the modern day, which was a burgeoning realist fashion in art. And he is here then feeling very persecuted. He's always feeling very persecuted, but he is pushing back against that, and he is calculating all these things: science, the Enlightenment, realism, all of these things in a particular form of the feminine. The feminine as a predatory animal, as a succubus, perhaps. And you can see elements of that throughout his larger body of work. But here, I think it's taking a particularly curious characterization, and one that is showing up very early in his work in a very simple and explicit form, as opposed to suffused through so many other things. So this one sonnet, a sonnet, gives you a nice key to studying the larger works and the more important works that we have from Mr. Poe.